How you going? Now last week I made this take-home king tiger in 1/35 scale. There's a link to find that up in the right hand corner of the video and also in the description. And what I wanted to do was make a diorama for it. I started with some 2-inch XPS insulation foam. This stuff is just used for insulating houses, attics, and it's one of the cheapest materials I find for making dioramas. What I did first was use a Sharpie or a permanent marker and just pretty much traced what I had in my head onto the piece of foam so I know where to cut it. The shape of the diorama. Once I was happy with that, I removed the tank. And I made this little gizmo using a ruler and a few clamps to make sure that I could cut the foam at a right angle since I don't have a base foam cutter. After that was completed, I cut a few other little pieces of foam to make the sides slope up a little ways as if the tank had been a track, and I also added some divots to make the muddy road. I made some mud paste using some water, soil, and Mod Podge mat in a 2:1 mixing ratio, and I spread this onto the surface of the foam with a small brush. I then left that to dry for a few days. I spread out some Mod Podge mat over the surface of the diorama, and then used some light green wooden scenic static grass. Once that was done, I used some drywall compound. This is pretty much just any drywall compound. You can find this at any hardware store. And I spread this over the sides of the foam. My plan was to give it a very smooth side, very smooth sides, and I ended up, it didn't really work out in the end, but it was a nice attempt. You'll notice there are also a few longer pieces of grass, and those are just pieces from an old paintbrush I had that I went ahead and glued. I sanded the sides of the foam, or the sides of the drywall compound / diorama, with some sandpaper, and I decided to prime the whole base using some NATO black. I saw a few other modelers doing this online, and I really wanted to try it out. And you'll see how my results were a little bit. With that done, I went ahead with some dark yellow from AK Real Colors, the same colors I had used to paint the tank. And I painted this over the areas where the grass was. Once I was done with that, I was happy with the result, so I moved on to the next stage and I painted some AK Real Colors olive green over the areas that I just painted. Focusing near the bottom, not necessarily near the top, as the grass would be drier near the top and wetter near the bottom. With that done, I went ahead with a lighter green color. It was olive green, I just mixed a little bit of lime green in there too to make a limeish green color. And I sprayed this over the very tip of the grass to give it a little bit of a lighter shade, and also some variation. The different grass types. With that done, I took some chocolate brown and I painted the areas that would, the dirt showing through the diorama, the track, and the areas of bare grass, or the areas where the grass hadn't covered. Any place the grass hadn't covered, I painted. this color. When that was completed, I was decently happy with the result, so I decided to move on. I coated the track area, the road area, with some acrylic gloss varnish. I would include a link to that in the description, but the label's ripped off the container, and I really don't know what brand it was. It was just some acrylic gloss varnish I bought a few years ago. It works well, so that's what I used. Now, the reason I'm adding acrylic gloss varnish is to seal the base of the diorama for the next step, and that is resin. And the resin I'm using is from Alumalite, and it's the amazing clear cast. There will be a link to that in the description of the video. The resin is mixed in a 1-to-1 mixing ratio by volume, in a 2-to-1 mixing ratio. You have to be sure to mix it very thoroughly, though, until the resin is a clear color. It will not be clear unless you mix it thoroughly. I recommend mixing for about 5 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then mix for another 5 minutes, as it gives time for the bubbles to pop and just to make sure everything's setting properly. I decided to add some chocolate brown and black to tint the resin a darker brown color, and I used a fork to help spread this into the diorama. I then placed the tank down and blended it in with the rest of the diorama using some of the resin. Once that was done, I let it to dry for 48 hours. After it had dried, I gently removed the tape. The one thing is that the tape did remove a little bit of the plaster I had put on earlier, but that was okay. I was able to patch that up. And I used a knife to remove the little lip the resin had left after the tape was removed. I used some more gloss varnish too, and I applied that over the wheels and the treads to give it more of a wet look. After that was done, I decided to swap out the static grass color for the woodland scenics light green. I really wasn't feeling the painted color. It just really wasn't working, and then I ended up not liking the light green color, so I went ahead with some plaster of Paris, and I just completely smashed all the grass down and put the plaster on top of it. I was kind of desperate at this point. I really didn't know what to do. The diorama wasn't really working, so I put some plaster down, painted the whole thing dark brown. I masked off the resin while I was doing this. I didn't want to get anything on the resin. And then I applied some light green woodland scenics, or medium green woodland scenics 7mm stacked grass. Yeah. I really do think that this helped change the overall look of the diorama completely. It really saved it, I think. And it went from something that I was terrified to look at to something I was decently pleased with. I went ahead with some more gloss varnish, and I applied this pretty much all over the diorama. This is supposed to be a muddy terrain after all, and the gloss varnish will give it more of a wet looking appearance. I added this in between the grass tufts, and pretty much over the whole surface. Then, using some Woodland Scenics water waves, this is a great product. I've used it previously in a few of my other dioramas. I added some ripples where the tank would have stirred up the water as it was driving through the the road. once that was done, I was very happy, so I decided to finish it up by painting the sides black. I am very happy with how the diorama turned out, considering I had a lot of issues with it and building it. And I'm really just happy with the overall result. If you like this video, please hit that like button, it really helps me out. Also subscribe if you want to help support the channel. That's what motivates me to make these videos, people subscribing, so if you could do that, that would be great. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, happy modeling, and stay safe.